Printed maps can come in very handy if people don't have access to mobile service or technology that they would need to get to the digital or online maps. The printed map we make might be being used for outdoor purposes such as biking or hiking, so we want to make one that's a topographic map. It makes sense to be able to show elevation. Now, there are professional programs or paid programs that allow you to do this and find topographic maps for all over the country or even all over the world, but those usually cost money, and we're going to use a free tool, which is Google Earth. Now, Google Earth has lots of 3D models and lots of information in it, but one thing it doesn't come with automatically is topographic maps with elevation lines. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a file that will allow us to import that into Google Earth. I've posted that on our school web page online in room 28 or room 6 in your files section on the bottom under Calistoga Rocks project. You can also find it by doing a Google search for NGS Topo US 2D.kmz. This is a National Geographic Society file, which is a KMZ file, which means it can be imported into Google Maps and Google Earth. So if we click on that link, it'll go ahead and download it to your downloads folder, and you'll see it show up at the bottom here of Google Chrome. And you can go ahead and click right on that then to open it up in Google Earth, and it will open it directly in Google Earth. Now if you see a startup tip show up, we can turn those off and we can close that, and you'll see on the side here it says temporary places, NGS Topo US 2D. So these maps have now been imported into the project. We don't want other things showing up. We want just our map and Google Earth so we can use some of the tools up at the top and help customize it ourselves. So we're going to close this little tour guide here, and we're going to zoom in, and you'll start seeing the map change color. The world, the globe, looks different than it normally would in Google Earth. And that's because it's loading up this NGS Topo layer. So if I turn that off, it'll look like normal. So let's check it again to turn it back on. So let's go ahead and fly into our location that we're looking for. We could zoom in manually, but we can also just type in Calistoga and fly into our location. Let me turn off borders and labels and places. We don't want those showing up on our map. We're going to add our own interesting places. So you'll see here it takes a few seconds, and then it loads up the topo map. You can see the elevation, you can see some markings of things that are already on the map originally. So that's why we don't need any other labels turned on in Google Earth. But what we do need to do is zoom to a good level that we're going to show in our printed map. So we wanted to show all the way down, as far down as Glass Mountain, which is down here. And you can see it shows different levels of detail as you zoom in and out of the maps. It's going to show different maps. Now if we didn't want Glass Mountain on our map, we might be able to zoom in a little bit closer. It just depends on what you're going to put on your map. You want to zoom in as close as you can while still being able to show all of the features in the map. So let's start with one of our features. First of all, let's click the X to get rid of our Calistoga pin there. We don't want that showing up. Instead, we could zoom in and look for the river here. And there's the Napa River. And we can look for the bridge, and we could show the Lincoln Bridge. If we wanted to show the Napa River location, we could then create a push pin for that with this little push pin plus button up here. So for each one, you need to put a name for it. And we would have to put our description, which is located in our geology project, and you'd have to copy and paste that in. So you would select it by highlighting it or pressing Control C and Control V and pasting it in there. So that's if we were actually going to make an interactive Google Earth map. But right now we don't even need to worry about that. All we need to worry about is putting push pins and labels in there. And the push pin can be changed up here in the corner by clicking that button, and you can choose different colors of pins, or you could choose to label with letters. So you're going to need to discuss with your team how you want to do it. Do you want to number the locations? Do you want to use different colors and symbols for each location? You need some way to tell them apart. So maybe I'll just use colors, blue for the river, red for volcanic evidence maybe, or for the petrified forest, light blue for the geyser, for example. So we've got our Napa River there, and we can move it with the yellow square around it by clicking and dragging it. There's the river. I can click OK. What if we want to find a location? Now I put a pin manually for the river because the river is very long. We need a specific location. But if we were actually going to try to do our Old Faithful geyser, you can see a list show up as I start typing it in the search up here. And if I click on the Tubbs Lane one, Calistoga, we can search for that, and it actually found it up here, and it's zooming us to that location. They even have it listed on the map, geyser. So if we had looked at the map, we could have found it without even having to do a search. But if we wanted to add that location there, we can add another push pin as well. So let's click the X to close that one and add our own push pin for it. Old Faithful Geyser. And it shows you the GPS positioning here, the latitude and longitude degrees. And we're going to move it into position where it belongs and choose a good color or a good style. Sometimes you may choose a picture. If it's something with volcanic activity or maybe the petrified forest, you might use trees. If you're doing one with mountains, you might find a picture of mountains. But it might make a lot of sense just to choose different colors or to choose different letters to represent these things. Okay, so we would go ahead and add our 5 different locations on our map. And once you've done that, or at least 4, you may not have Glass Mountain on yours, but we do want the river, the geyser, the Oat Hill Mine Trail. That's Oat Hill Mine Road actually shows up on the map here. And if we click on that and search for it, there's a location where we can put it. So we would add each of our features onto the map here, and then we're going to export the map. See, we're making a 2-dimensional printed map, which is why we're not adding all of the information on here. We would do that if we're doing a Google tour, which we can do. I'll show that in a different video. But in this case, we're just putting some locations on there to create a printed version. So we're going to need to add the text boxes in a different program, an image editing program that's designed for making 2D printed things. So to do that, you can choose a location that's going to show you everything you need to see on your map. So you need to zoom to a good location where you can see everything. In this case, if we wanted to see Petrified Forest, that's over here, Petrified Forest, you can see the location. And Glass Mountain, we could get something like that. And then choose File, Save. And we're going to choose Save Image. And you want to choose a good location to save the image. It could just be documents or pictures right now because we're going to end up uploading it to your Google Docs anyway. So I'm going to call this Calistoga Geotour or Calistoga Rocks. And we'll click Save. It's a JPEG image, which is fine. Standard image type. So we saved it into our documents. Now when we go into our folder, we can find our project folder and create a collaborative project right there with the rest of our presentation. So we go in our project folder, we have our presentation in there that we were working on. So once you're in your team folder, you can see the team presentation and research that you did, but we need to actually make that map now. So we're going to use the Create button to create a drawing. Now this is a very basic drawing tool. If you aren't using Google Docs, you could use another program like Photoshop or GIMP, which is a free photo editor similar to Photoshop, and you install it on the computer. But this will work for what we want it to do. We just want to add labels and boxes with text for inside there. So you want to come up with a good name for your map, Calistoga Geology Map, or whatever you want to call it. But it should be descriptive and it should be a nice title. Then we're going to insert our image that we saved. So we'd insert an image and we have to upload it from our computer. Now you want to do this right away because if you just save it on your computer, some computers are set to erase the images you save. So you've got to find that folder you saved it in. Here's my Calistoga Geotour image that I saved, and I click open and it will upload it to our Google Drawing. Once it's in our drawing, it's saved on our Google Drive and we don't need to worry about it anymore. So you'll see some features on here. We can shrink this down if we need to. And if you do shrink it down, you have to use the corner rectangles to do that, not the top and bottom or the sides. If you use the top and bottom, it squishes it, and that defeats the purpose of a map because it won't be really usable anymore. And we can make it a little bit bigger so it actually goes off the side of the paper here, and that way we can get rid of the Google Earth features that are showing up on the side there. For example, I can drag that off the edge and drag this down, make it bigger. Okay, so now that we have our map on our viewing area and it's in our shared folder, it should be in our project folder, that means everybody in our team will be able to get into that map and make changes to it. You can collaborate to add your text and your information for each actual item. Now, in this case, we only had 3 of our key sites on there. You'd want to make sure you have all of your key sites on there. But once you do, you can add text boxes using this shape tool. And then you can choose shapes such as a rectangle or a rounded rectangle. So I'll just take a basic rectangle right now. And you want to keep them, this is the tricky part, you want to place them in locations where they're not going to get in the way of seeing the sites themselves or the labels for the sites. So if I wanted to put the information for Old Faithful Geyser in here, I can create a rectangle, choose a color, so here's a background color here, that's a fill color, and a borderline color. And your color should probably match your push pin a bit. So if I wanted to make it match the push pin better, I could use something like that, and the black border's fine. And if you want to add text, you double click inside that box and it makes a blinking cursor, which you can now type your text or copy it from where you've already written it. Now the tricky thing is it's already formatted here. It's yellowish orange or whatever color you chose, and it's going to be kind of big. So when I paste it in there with Control C to copy it, Control A selects it all, Control C to copy it, and then you click where you want it to go and Control V. It's very large there. It overflowed right out of that container and it would not fit on a printed map. So we need to select it all again with Control A and change the size and the style of it. So let's make it a lot smaller. 10 is fairly small. You don't really want to go much smaller than 9, but you do want a different color probably. So let's go ahead and make that font color. Let's see if there's more options here. Okay, so there's the font color right here. We can make that black, and we can change the size of the box so that it fits inside better if we need to. So maybe we would make this box long and narrow to contain it, and you want to make sure that fits outside of the label but still on the map. So you're going to need to play around with these boxes, but the good news is on this program, when you do work or you create things, you can change it as you go and you can move them around. So here we go, I put one on the side and now it fits. But we're also going to need one for the petrified forest, for the river, for the Odell Trail, and possibly for Glass Mountain down here. So you go ahead and create all these, and when you're finished, it's going to save as you go along, but you can also press Control S to make sure it saves all the changes in Drive. If you're ready to print it at the end, you'll click the print button down there and it will create a printable version such as a PDF file, or you can change it to send it to a printer.